Welcome to ViviTalks. I'm Vivienne Aerts. Join me in celebrating 100 talented female musicians from my last album, Typuhthâng, empowering female cacao farmers in Congo's Virunga State Park and restoring the rainforest. Delve into the musical journeys, creative processes, and unique perspectives of these talented women that were involved in the making of this album. Today I'm talking with Enya Lim, aka NyaLi, singer-songwriter and educator. Born and raised in Singapore, tropical songbird NyaLi is described as a musical whirlwind of a hustler by friends. Enya Lim to friends and family offstage. She's known for versatility across genres and being the zealous small girl with the big sound, whether in singing or songwriting. Listen to our conversation as we dive into the music culture in Singapore and her experience as being a singer and performer in the music industry.
So welcome to my official podcast.
Thank you.
I'd love to hear a little bit about your background, where you're from, what you do, and what's been happening, which is super
okay.
nice. Yeah.
Okay. So my name, you know me as Enya. My artist name is NyaLi, which is actually a merging of my first name Enya and my last name Lim, while kicking off the front and the back end because I was lazy to think of something else. And I found out later that in Bahasa Indonesian, there are two types of Malay. One is from Indonesia and one is from Malaysia. In Bahasa Indonesian, NyaLi means courage. Because I was at a point where I was considering changing the name because people always have trouble with pronouncing it. And I don't know if you noticed, but because my last name is capitalized, like Lim is capitalized, it's a capital L, right? Which is important to me. But anyways, like some people are always messing it up and getting confused, and I was just like, I should change it. And then my Indonesian friend was like, but it means something so nice, and I was just like, what does it mean? And I was like, oh, okay, I guess I'm not changing it then, and it's a conversation topic anyway. So but yeah, it's really interesting what comes up sometimes when you Google NyaLi, because you get random like African associations, like African musicians and places in Africa, I don't know, like organizations. So it's funny. But yes, I am first and foremost a singer. I do have a classical background. I don't know if it is perpetuating a stereotype, but in Singapore, I'm one of those kids, like many other Singaporean kids of my generation. We were made to go to Yamaha at a young age and play classical piano till grade 8. So I have a grade 8 standard fail. I failed my grade 8. I did pass grade 7 and I almost passed grade 8, but I didn't pass classical piano at grade 8. And at that point of time, I'd already been singing in choirs and doing some solo cantoring work because I was raised Catholic. So there are bits of the liturgical service where, somebody will sing and the congregation will respond. So I was doing a bit of that. And I was starting to get my feet wet in the local bar scene in Singapore. And I told my mom, I don't want to do piano anymore. I want to sing more. Singing has always been a part of my life. I think when I began to talk was about the time that I was also starting to sing, or maybe I sang before I talked. I don't know. And I joined choirs around the age of 8 or 9. But I think I have to thank Disney for being a very important genre that contributes to why I'm singing still today. Like, one thing leads to another. And Disney was definitely a bedrock for a lot of my musical influence. I had a choral classical phase. I was super into Charlotte Church in my early teens, I think. Super preteen, early teens. And then I discovered, pop music, radio pop. I discovered that what my dad had been playing at home a lot, a bunch of Buena Vista Social Club, Ella Fitzgerald, Louis Armstrong, Frank Sinatra, Nat King Cole. I discovered that all these artists belong to the broader world in music that's called jazz. That genre, when I was about 19 or 20 years old, and I started university in Singapore. And so I have another bachelor's, but I don't think the first bachelor's, was, because sometimes I get this question from people like, do you wish you just went straight to music college? And I'm just like, well, no, because if I had not gone to do my first program, I wouldn't have known that I want to explore music more, because I wouldn't have discovered all these other, cultural things that I discovered during the first university program I did. And honestly, some of the best friends that I still have, closest friends that I still have, are from that period of time. So, but it was definitely the best decision that I made for myself to, what is the word? To debate with my parents and manage to convince them that I should go to music school after finishing university in Singapore, because after all, like, if you have a university degree, why are you doing another one at the same level? And at that point of time, I was about to graduate the first program, and I actually wanted to go straight into doing like music school. And I don't know if it's the same with our parents' generation across the board in the world in general, but they're like, oh yeah, get your stable, reliable degree first, your basic degree, and then go and do the artsy thing, So that was the deal that we had. And I'm super fortunate that I have really chill parents who really, end of the day, they just want me to be happy and to find the thing that I love doing, which makes me happy and gives me meaning. So I'm really, really fortunate that they want that for me, plus they're willing to help me out, because as we know, music school wasn't cheap. In terms of cost, financial cost, and also like there's a time cost issue, especially if you go there, as most internationals like us do, when you're a bit older, because you've already done other things before. But then no regrets at all. I go back to this constantly, but really one thing leads to the other. I met some of the best musicians ever and most beautiful people, beautiful humans that I still hold close to me today. It's funny. A lot of my really close, I would say, ride or die people are spread across the world. And it is due in large part to like having gone to Berkeley, having spent that time in Boston and New York. They're the kind of friends that I don't have to see a lot or talk to all the time, but when I see them in person, it's a super overjoyed sort of situation, like, feelings that arise, and it feels like I saw them yesterday, the way we get along. It's just, there's a lot more to catch up on and chat about. So yeah, I don't know if you remember Ece from Turkey. She's still one of my best friends. I don't know if you remember Karen Lee from Puerto Rico. She's also one of my best friends. So I have one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast. And I have a friend who is in Singapore too, but we only knew each other because we met as fellow Singaporeans who happened to be attending Berkeley. And yeah, I would say she's definitely one of my best friends here. But a lot of my good friends are spread over the world. And I think another gift is that, if you attend an international body of students, like a school, with an international body of students like that, you're going to be able to travel almost anywhere in the world and have a friend, or at least have a friendly face,
Right.
Yeah. So that's nice. Have a music connect, it can be like, can you like point me to the good live music scene spot here if you're there traveling? Yeah, so that's really nice. Who am I? What do I do in general? Well, I don't know if I answered all the questions. I feel like I just went on a ramble and took you on a ride, but I don't know if I am deviating from the whole point of our chat. What do you think? What do I do
I'd love to
here?
learn a little more about you as a writer, right? You started making your own music as well.
I did.
Did you always do that?
No, I was encouraged to do it when I first started, getting to the bar scene here, and when I was in university as well. One of I would say, one of the household music venues, music venue names in Singapore. 10 years ago, or over 10 years ago, he took me out for coffee one day because I think he heard me sing at university. And then he's just like, you know, the most original you can be is writing your own songs, and you should really consider doing that. And I was just like, oh, haha, what does that mean? You know, like, because as I said, in Singapore, we're also not used to that. Like, cover music is big here, radio cover music. And a lot of the bigger name bands, they're all like radio pop cover bands, you know. Very few have their own stuff. The few that do are considered alternative and like underground sort of bands. Yeah, acts. So it was amazing being in the US and discovering that there's so much more to, you know, the music world than that. In terms of empowering you to also sound the way you want to sound and create the sound that you want, which maybe doesn't exist or you haven't heard yet. So as a writer, I began writing, I want to say in the fall of 2014, because I took a lyric writing class with Melissa Ferrick. I don't know if you remember her. And at the point of time, I was just trying to finish the weekly assignment. So I like finished writing the lyric, and then I had to have a melody to go with it, and then I had to chords. So out came my first song because I finished the assignment, right? And I had to do what happened? I had to do a demo of it, I think. And after I did the demo, you know, like I continued writing, I guess. But I didn't put anything out at that point. My first single came out in the fall of 2015. So that was like about a year later. Because, you know, at Berkeley, it's super common for collaborations to happen between MPE students, the production students, and everybody else, especially like the performers and the songwriters, right? Because they need to work on a project and make it sound a certain way, whether it's a sound alike or whether it's an original recording of new material. So I don't know if you remember Peter from Norway. I know everybody's called Peter from Norway, but like the tall blonde Peter. I can't say his name right still till today, but Peter, I call him Pete. Yeah, Itso or something like that. I don't know how you say the last two names. Okay, but he lives in LA to my knowledge still. The last time I saw him was probably 2017 Halloween because I was in LA visiting Edge. But so he produced that first single for his MPE project. And it was very memorable because I remember having a pair of phones. My vocal booth was basically a pair of phones and I don't know how he got hold of a Neumann. I don't know if it was his, but whatever. He put it in front of his clothes. He opened his wardrobe and put it in front because the acoustic is actually good. And so I sung into his wardrobe basically. And then after a bunch of, you know, different vocal tracks were recorded, and some funky things were played on the guitar, like him and his roommate. I don't know if you remember this Italian MPE kid, Giovanni, I think it was.
Maybe.
Yeah, they were roommates. And so, you know, like, it's very family if you're international. Like, your friends become your family, right? And everybody just goes to each other's house and everybody who's around just gives ideas. So, like, that was my first single. That was the process of my first single. And after that, I continued because it was fun. And I am fortunate to have had people around me that, you know, also were into helping me produce stuff. So then in 2016, I put out a couple more singles. In 2017, I put out my first and my last EP, actually. I haven't put out any EP since then. I put out a bunch of singles during the COVID period when our equivalent of like lockdown was happening. In Singapore, we called it circuit breaker. And we were all exploring Zoom a bit more, all exploring remote collaboration in the studio a bit more because we were all like sad and bored and we couldn't really play music. So I think 2020 on hindsight was actually my most original material productive year, because I think I put out a single every month starting in April that year, like from April all the way until like August or September. Yeah, it was like monthly. And And it was, you know, a different kind of fun. It gave us something to do. It also helped me to connect a bit more with people, like, you know, Berkeley friends who were still in the States, who had moved back home, for example, to Bahrain. And I don't know, it's just, you know, it's on Spotify. It's so like it's a nice memory. It's a nice memory to have that's just there in perpetuity as long as Spotify doesn't take it down because some copyright violation. I don't know what. But you know, they do that. They do press charges for random reasons sometimes. So but yeah, that is my original music journey. I think the last original music that I put out was probably in January this year. It is actually a commission song because coming out of COVID, as I said, the scene in Singapore is small, and during the COVID 2020 year, because I put out so much stuff, I made some contacts with radio stations locally, and one of them remembered me. So when the restrictions had eased and we were coming out of it, he wanted to do a massive scale, like 3 or 4 month project to show the resilience of our local community and our citizens. And he hired a bunch of visual artists and also a handful of music sound artists. So I was one of the artists that he found. And each of us got commissioned to like write a song. And so in January this year, my song got released because as much as it belongs to the project, they still wanted us as artists to be able to promote the music. Yeah. So that was nice. And that was the last thing, honestly. Yeah. Since then, it's just been like a bunch of regular gigs at bars, wedding things, because it's summer all year. So it's not like the GB situation where it's only in the summer that you get work. Over here, it's kind of like you get events and gigs on a rolling basis every month, except for we have a cultural thing called Hungry Ghost Festival. And so it's like superstitious bad luck or whatever to get married during that month. It's over now, or is it around this period? Actually, I don't know. I'm a really bad Chinese person. I will find out and let you know. I think it's not over yet this year, actually. But there's a different kind of music that happens during that period of time here. In Chinese, we call it ge tai. It's literally translated, it means like song stage. And so you have all these performers who get paid a shit ton of money. Sorry if I swear it, but I'm not supposed to. You get paid so much money because it's seasonal and you are performing for the spirits. It's the Hungry Ghost Festival. Yeah. And the performers, the singers are known to like wear super shiny, like outrageous, like sequins all over, like feather boa kind of like outfits. Yeah, and a lot of makeup. Yeah, so it's kind of a bit like, you know, think of like almost on the level of Beijing opera, your face is all white, almost.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's the thing here, because sorry, go ahead.
You do these gigs as well.
Oh no, I haven't. But it's funny whenever I like talk to friends who have, because it's just funny to imagine them in the costume, you know, like even the guys have to wear like funny things with like feathers sticking out, or I don't know, like they have some sort of like a dragon scale, whatever. I don't know. I don't know if you heard of lion dance. There are all these cultural things that have to do with Chinese culture and Indian culture, because in Singapore, we're a bit like a mini American society in the sense that we're very diverse culturally. The majority of the resident population is Chinese. So that would be like over 60%. And then we have a sizable percentage that are also the diaspora from South India. So that's like 20%. And then the rest are like Malays, who are actually the native people of the land. Yeah, and each culture has their own kind of like, you know, folk music. Yeah. And then you have Singlish, of course, which is Singaporean English. And it kind of uses Chinese grammar with English words. So like the sentence structure is a bit messed up, to be honest. And a lot of American friends gave me feedback that it kind of sounds like a Jamaican accent. Which I can see why they would say that after like going to check out what the Jamaican accent is like, but it's just interesting. Yeah, it's funny. Yeah. So that's what goes on here. Yeah, sorry, please prompt me. I think
Great.
I'm just on a mission to sidetrack this entire conversation. But
Awesome. Well, I'm
that's weird.
learning a lot about you, and I think that the people that will listen to this as well. I'd love to hear a little more about your creative process. How do you approach writing or composing music? Do you just have to sit down? Do you write them on the
Can I ask you a question back first before I answer that question? What is the difference to you between a songwriter and a composer?
To me, it's the same.
Okay.
But a composer, I think by definition, the songwriter is more like a song in the sense that there is a lyric and a melody going on. But if you write a composition, that maybe that's a definition, but I don't really see it like.
Yeah. Interesting. I like to hear people's, impression of if there is a difference, and if the difference exists for you, like what would you break it down to be? You know what I'm saying? Because for me, I feel like it's a top-down versus bottom-up approach. If you're a composer, to me, you have the technical musical bits of it, the blocks of it that you put together, and then you build up from the chords, for example, and maybe you have a certain progression. Maybe you have a certain groove in mind, and then maybe you have a certain lick that you want to be a recurrent theme, for example, right? And then for you, the melody comes later, and the lyrics fit what this melody that you have wants to say, kind of, like for me, that's how I feel composer works different as opposed to a songwriter, for whom the melody and the lyrics come first. They don't always have to occur together, but definitely melody and lyric first. And then, like, at least that's how I used to think of it. And I'm not sure what I think anymore, but I tend to still gravitate back towards this impression of being a songwriter versus being a composer, like innately.
That.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I feel like for myself, I'm more of a songwriter because I would, there's a technical perfection or like the technical excellence bit of it, and then there's the whole like emotional expression side of it. And I've always felt that, like, with my writing, I always start with the melody and lyrics. A lot of the time they come together, and then I work out the chords, and then I work out like if there are certain instruments that I'm hearing, like I try and work with people, because I'm not a great arranger or what do you call those people, transcriber or whatever, I don't know, like I like to work with melody and lyric, and I need help as far as everything else goes. You know what I'm saying? Which is why it's great, because then you get to involve friends whose strengths are not yours, but you need those strengths, and so I work top to bottom that way. If there are certain random instruments that I know I must have because I heard it in my head, or like one night I dreamed of it, then I'll make sure that it's super clear. Or if there's like a certain riff or a certain bass line, it'll come to me, but usually most of the time it's the melody and the lyrics first. Yeah.
Awesome. Great. I got another question, because this project I put out is with a bunch of women. I'd love to ask you, have you faced any stereotypes or biases as a female musician, and how do you challenge or overcome them?
I'm not sure if it's, I like this question a lot. And I'm not sure if I'm going to be annoying with answering this question, but I think part of the whole stereotype that as singers we deal with is that a lot of singers tend to be women. And a lot of singers, I don't know, I had this impression, and it still makes me a bit annoyed / angry, indignant for sure, that singers are kind of seen as like second-rate musicians, so I carry it forward with me, and I try not to let this trauma, if you can call it, like spill over into my own teaching. But I'm very adamant that like my students and this is outside of the gender question that you asked, but like I'm very adamant that if you're a singer who works with me, you got to know some theory and you got to know how to count off a band and lead the band, because you are the voice of the band and it is your duty to be able to lead the people rather than count on them, like, you know, depend on them to feed you stuff. You know, like it's a very empowering thing to stand in front of people and be able to point out a chord quality that your piano player played that is wrong, or tell the bass player that the rhythm of the riff is not in the pocket. You know what I'm saying? So I think like one thing that I figured out while I went to music school, when we were in music school at that time, was we did groove writing for sure. I was just like, I found it great that there were certain classes that we had to take. Ear training was for me, it was the most valuable thing, because I think I've always had pretty strong pitch. And I don't know if this is because of my classical background, you know, like from a young age, I was exposed to a lot of music and scale type music. My pitch, I've never really had a problem, but like rhythmically, wow, I got my butt kicked at Berkeley when I went to do ensembles like Pat Metheny and Esperanza Spalding. And, you know, I took like, microtonal class and all that, like, because there are some pretty odd meter things. Oh yeah, Indian ensemble. You know, there's some pretty odd meter things and meter change things that happen with the repertoire that you're given. So I loved how it kicked my butt. And I guess if you really want to nerd out, you can sink into a wormhole and go nuts on that. But it's definitely made me a lot more aware of being a musician in the, like, I can talk to the band and I can tell them what I want. I don't have to go, oh, can you go like, oh, pew. No, I'll be like, can you gliss? Can you do a gliss? You know, like if I'm talking to the bass player, or I'll be like, can you do a pedal point kind of stuff? And when I was like green and bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, like, you know, when I first entered like music school, I didn't have any of that language, any of that terminology. And of course, like, as I said, coming from this society where we're mostly exposed to like four on the floor type, you know, it's either soft electronic or like same chord progression things. It was really a treat to have my ear open up to all the different styles out there. I'm so hijacking your question. I feel like I haven't faced a whole bunch of discrimination as a woman as much as, and I wouldn't even call it discrimination, but I just feel like people dismiss you a little bit sometimes as a singer. And it just so happens that a lot of singers, the majority of the demographic, happen to be girls. But I would separate that, you know, because I feel like as a woman, I haven't really been, you know, the subject of prejudice just because of gender. Yeah. I don't know, but also is it disturbing or annoying that a lot of people expect if you're a singer, they just assume, you know, you're a girl, or if you're a girl, people assume you're a singer. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
that's reality.
Yeah, and like that's what you do, and then you look at the drummer or the piano player and you wait for them to count you off. So that annoys me too. I think coming out of COVID, I got really, really lucky. So one of the projects that I make music with now is it's a cover band, pop cover band. But we were sad and bored, music friends and myself, in Singapore in 2020 and 2021. So we started live streaming because there were certain household restrictions with how many people you could have over. So based on that, we formed like a 5-piece. And then coming out of COVID, we already had sort of like an online presence. So we got hired by a couple of venues to do regular bar things. And I was called to play piano and sing at one of the household music venues back home. And I didn't want to do it because I don't like to play and sing. Previously, I didn't, I just want to sing. A lot of instrument players, they like to hide behind their instrument if they also sing, but I'm the opposite. I feel the instrument distracts me and it gets in the way of me communicating properly. So like for me, it's interesting. It's always been an opposite situation because I came from a choir background. I'm more comfortable in my airier, breathier, headier voice. It took a lot for me to come down and understand, the chest register and like the chest mix, blah, blah, blah. So similarly with playing the piano, I think that it forced me to level up. The boss of this venue, he is just like, you play the piano. You're going to play the piano. And I was just like, I'm going to play the piano. Fine. So like coming out of like when live music reopened, I played the piano and I sang and it kicked my butt. Yeah, but I think it forced me to be able to multitask better. Now I teach better and like because if I'm accompanying my kids or if I'm trying to convey a point with a song, a song selection of my students, I'm able to talk to them and check what they're seeing if it's correct in expression or whatever. It's made me a better multitasker. My sense of rhythm has improved, and it's made me a better listener. Yeah, in the band context for sure. So I think COVID was very important. It sucked, but it was very important. Yeah. And I mean, we're all still doing music now post-COVID, which tells you something about how important music is to us. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like I feel a lot of friends that I know locally, they changed industry. And there is no shame in changing industry if you have a family to support and you have, debts to pay and you need to eat.
Right.
No shame at all. But like those of us that are lucky enough, to have stayed also because we wanted to stay, because the choice is always yours, whether you're like, all right, I'm going to sell myself out and do this other thing so that I can make the money that I need to make versus, no, I'm going to rough it out, Yeah, so we're still doing music. I guess COVID also taught us, me and you, people like us, how much music means to us and how much we need it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Can you share a significant moment when your music had like a profound impact on somebody or someone's life? Or
like in my performance, or if somebody gave me feedback? There's a song that's in my first EP. I could talk about that. But I could also talk about, does it have to be my original material?
Anything. Yeah, just an experience.
I'm going to plug a local artist right now that's not me. Her name is Corinne May. She's a senior of ours. I think she probably graduated Berkeley, I want to say a decade before we did, or possibly more. And I think she's back in Singapore now, but she lived abroad in LA for quite some time. She married a fellow Berkeley student who is Malaysian, I think, and they lived in Singapore now. I think in her first album, she wrote a tune called Fly Away. And my dad bought the album back in the day when we still had CDs, and CD players in cars and Discmans and stuff. So we were all a lot younger. But so my dad bought this first album of hers. I think the title track is the track that I'm going to talk about. It's called Fly Away. It hit me pretty hard, I think, during the time that I was living abroad, because in it, she's really telling a story, the songwriter, Corinne May, about how her mother loves her so much, and her mother was sick. But her mother told her to fly away and chase her dream. So like for me, there's also something about Corinne May's voice, and I cannot articulate it. You have to just listen to it and then you might get it, Yeah, the story is very compelling because I guess I related with it on a visceral level, especially when when it was that period that I was living abroad and basically going home like once a year. And it was super far away. And, you know, like the thought that if anything happened to anyone back home, like my grand aunt, uncle, parent, I would have to fly like close to 10,000 miles one way. You know what I'm saying? That's like a day in air.
Yep.
So yeah, that song really struck me then. It's called Fly Away. I'll share it with you at some point after this movie. And so that's Corinne May, and I think she's awesome. Her music is very spiritual. She's very a very devoted Catholic. But I feel like you don't have to consume the music from a religious or like orientation necessarily. It can be completely like just personal, you know. Yeah. So that is definitely a piece of music that was important, profound for me. But yeah, there are a lot of other profound moments, but they're not coming to me right now. And you know, like I think one thing that I do want to share is before I decided to take the leap and do music more seriously, I've always liked stories. I don't know if you feel the same. And then now I realize on hindsight that I still love stories, and whereas previously I was considering going into journalism, now the storytelling form of choice is songs, because songs tell stories too, which is why I say I'm a songwriter. You know what I'm saying? Because for me, the words do matter. And I don't know, like, you know, we can have a whole other conversation about this, because there's songwriters like Paul Simon for whom lyrics are also super, super important. You know what I'm saying? And then you have like on the other end of the spectrum, you have people like Coltrane and Wayne Shorter and all that, and they're really truly brilliant composers, right? And for them, really the music is speaking, not so much the words, but it's really nice that people have put words to some of their tunes as well. Yeah, so super cool how like this can exist, and then you can reinvent it, and then you can make it a super cool other thing without losing the essence, hopefully. I don't know. Yeah. I'm super rambling. Stop me anytime.
Okay, next question then. What advice would you give to aspiring musicians who are just starting out their journey?
Yeah, you got to, I would say, if you are a musician who plays an instrument, it's very useful to be able to sing. And if you're a singer, definitely be able to play an instrument. And also, don't kid yourself that you're going to be a pop star in 10 weeks.
10 weeks.
Yeah, I don't know. I do have kids who come to me and be like, I want to sing like Ariana Grande by next month. And I'm like, you know, like, we could work on a song of hers, but I cannot promise you that, you know? Yeah, because also you have to be realistic in a positive way, right? You have to also do an inquiry onto what their voice type is like and where they are with their ear and their natural beginning technical ability. And so there's a lot that goes into it. It's not just as simple as like waltzing into 1 hour and being like, oh, I want to sing this like exactly like the singer, you know, in 5 lessons. I'm like, we'll see. Yeah, so I'm like, I think another thing about teaching is that I feel really the learning style and the teaching style have to be compatible. And I think it's something I've come to realize the longer I teach. So I wouldn't say I accept just any students. I love children. But I do not love teaching them, a lot of them. So I'm really, 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 really picky. I actually only teach children under the age of 10 in exceptional circumstances. The rest of the time, my students are either like teens, or, you know, young to older people, like younger adults. Sorry, I was going to say younger adults to maturer adults, I don't know, around our age. Or I do on occasion also teach, like our parents' age people. But then again, the set of expectations and the way you communicate with age groups do differ. Yeah, because I guess what people are trying to pursue is also different. Yeah.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, with a different age. Like, if you're a retiree, you probably just want to have some fun, feel nice, do songs that you like, sing karaoke with your friends. I don't know. At least that's what it would be here. Yeah. So yeah. Yeah, that's my advice. Sorry. If you're a singer, make sure you can play an instrument. If you're an instrument player, do pick up some singing. I think, right, like, when we go to school, music school, you're always encouraged to like understand other instruments, right? Even if it's not your most comfortable or preferred thing. Like, so yeah. So that and like work out in the gym. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't expect that it's gonna come to you if you just sit there and wait for it. We practiced.
Right. Do your work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. So last question. Are there any upcoming projects or goals, or where do you see yourself going in the next few years?
Like just musically, right?
Yeah. Or in life. Are you gonna be an astronaut next?
Am I gonna what?
Be an astronaut.
Astronaut? No, actually, I am having a kid at the end of November.
Wow.
So that's coming up. And I mean, as you pointed out, and I'm not denying, I did get married earlier this month. So a lot to process, I guess. Yeah, but I'm hoping like motherhood will be able to feed my outlook and inspire a lot of cool art from within me. Yeah, because I think you definitely get a different heightened perspective on life and living and the meaning of existence and love, I guess. So that's coming up end of the year. And I'm also adjusting to, being more than just a girl and a daughter at this point still. It's all very new, but it's not bad. Like I said earlier, it's really not bad stuff. So yeah, but I would like to put out an album, not just, so I also want a music baby to come out. I miss concept albums. Remember when we were growing up, you have the whole like, oh yeah, there's a thread, a common thread or a few common threads running through one album, sorry. So I miss that. But I don't know how well it sells now. Not that I'm forgetting what we discussed earlier about, the whole music for yourself versus music for money. If I put out an album, I don't, it has to strike a balance between both, I think, because end of the day, you still want those Spotify streams to not be too sucky. So maybe I would have to pick a few singles to release, but then actually release the whole concept album for people who really want to go listen to it, or just for myself and family and friends. I don't know. So I am currently like not seriously and dedicatedly enough trying to plan for an album, because I was going to work on it, and then I realized that I'm getting married and I'm pregnant and blah blah blah. So like life happens, it does. But the universe knows what it's doing. I like to trust it. And I like to believe that, we're fortunate to be in an industry where we can decide to leave it and return to it, or it can kind of always be there in the backdrop, just running at a lower intensity. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's great. Well, I'm looking forward to your album. That's that's totally something that
I'm hoping it'll be next year, but we'll see. I want to underpromise.
Rush, right? There's my last album came just now, And before
Mhm.
that was 10 years.
Mhm.
So it took me a while.
Yeah.
Between my second and my third album, there was 10 years, and just life happened, right? Being in New
Yeah.
York, getting the visa, making
Yeah. You're crushing it, Viv.
step by step.
Yeah. I mean, you're
Yeah,
crushing.
I'm
You
also
feel really tired because San Francisco, but you're crushing it. From it looks like you're really slaying from my corner at least. With the music you're making, with the travel you're doing for music, and all the projects you're involved with.
thank you. Basically, the whole women project had more to do with me as a person than I thought.
Mhm.
In the beginning, it was just, oh yeah, the chocolate is made by women, so we need to put women on, right? That was in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then I didn't want to do a female power band because that's in jazz. It's really like, there's a girl group.
Uh,
So
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
figured, let's just make a list of all the cool people. And that's how it started, right?
It was so much fun chatting with you,
And
actually.
we'll be in touch.
So I'm looking forward to that so much. Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay.
Yes.
Awesome.
As I conclude this episode of ViviTalks, I want to express my sincere gratitude for joining me in this musical journey. I hope you enjoyed exploring the stories and experiences of the incredible female musicians on my album. To stay updated on our latest episodes, subscribe to ViviTalks on your favorite podcast platform. Connect with me on social media through Vivienne, and please check out my album Typuhthâng, a musical exchange featuring 100 female musicians to empower female cacao farmers of Virunga State Park in Congo. It's about more than just music. It's about making a positive impact in the world. Your support is part of that journey, so thank you once again for tuning in. Until next time, keep celebrating the power of music, and let's continue to amplify the voices of remarkable women in the industry. Stay inspired, stay empowered, and keep the music flowing. With love and gratitude. Till soon.